On page 70, we start a new major scale fingering type. We are still going to be in the second position. We already know C major scale. We studied the F major scale in the first section, where we found out the only difference between C major scale and F major scale is that in F major scale there's a B flat. So if we keep in second position, and let's just start from C so that we know that's your C major scale. Now anytime we play a B, it will not be played as a B, it will be played as a B flat. So let's start on this F here. B flat. F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. Let's go up to the A. G, A, G, F, E, D, C, B flat, second finger. A, G, F, E, D, C, stretch, B flat, A, D, and our lowest note, F. So the root of this scale really is a first finger stretch all the way to F. And what fingering type is this? Well, it uses a first finger stretch actually 3 times for 2 different notes. We play F twice and B flat. This is fingering type 1A. It's built off of the fingering type 1 from C, and now fingering type 1A is F. Here is the exercise on page 70. One, 2, 3, 4. Make sure you practice each section alone. The first section, the first 2 lines, states the scale in the whole second position. Then practice that 3rd line by itself. C sharp, D flat. Always stretch for that B flat. And then slowly practice that whole exercise. on the 5th line. Let's look at that from D, C. When you get to the F, slide to the F sharp. Then you have G, A, B flat, slide up to the B, C, C sharp, D, E, F. So it's I think that's the hardest part of the whole exercise. Let's do the 8th note study on page 71. One, two, three, four. The hardest thing is making sure you make the stretch to get those B flats and Fs, especially on these, the 5th and 6th string, and keeping tempo. Sliding up with the G sharp. Did you notice that any time when you don't play with a metronome, it feels easier? That metronome gives you that pressure to keep a steady tempo. It's really a great practice tool. The next exercise is the arpeggio study. I'm going to be using the picking that's stated in the book the first time through, and then I'm going to use alternate picking the second time through. One, two, three, 1, 2, 3. The hardest part in this, other than the picking, is in your, well, it includes picking, is in the last measure of the first line. You have to skip a string. You're playing this F, and then you have to skip to the third string to play the C. So it's F, C, F, C, A, F. See how hard it is? F, C, A, F. So from the third measure, hearing the chords, the first measure is F. The second measure is G minor. Third measure is C7. to F, B flat, F, E, C, B flat is a C7. And notice we're ending in first position. F is played with the first finger. Again, it says also practice arpeggios with alternate picking, which is generally the most practical. That's what I did the second time through. The chord forms on the bottom of page 71 are off of our basic form that we played C7. We either played the C7 like this with root on the 5th string or the 2nd string, or we played the note G or the 5th of the chord on the bottom. Either one is fine. So from this chord, we've already played the augmented chord. That is root on any of those notes that are being played. C, E, A flat or G sharp, C. The next one is augmented add 9. Root is the 5th string, just like your C7, 5th string. Now look at this. The same form can be another chord. If we're looking at this chord that we called C augmented add 9, if we look at the 4th string, which is E, we could call this an E7 or E dominant 7, but I'll call it E7 sharp 5. Now I'll demonstrate the chord exercise at the bottom of the page. Whenever I play the basic form of the dominant 7th chord right now, I am going to play the 5th string. I am not going to play the 6th string. It's the one with the 5th string root of the 2nd string. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we have the F, E7, just like the C7, up to the 5th fret, down, down, then the augmented in the same spot, augmented add 9, still D, then G7, then G augmented 7, which really is the 4th position. Here's the G. To add 5, G is the 4th string, we just add our 4th finger. Then, here's a very good concept of playing a C7 in 2 different places. 1, 2, 3, 4. C7, C7, both root 5, right? And then F, B flat 7. Chord etude number 2. This is another one of Bill's beautiful chord etudes that is both a strengthener for the hand, recognition of chord forms that you have already played. Here we have a C and a C7, a C major 7 to a C7. We have an F chord. And so you're reading chords without symbols. At the beginning it says rubato, freedom of tempo. Remember in chord etude 1 I played it slowly and freely, and that's actually rubato. I still want you to play with some sense of tempo, and then at sometimes you can retard or accelerate as you wish. So now I'll play chord etude and we'll talk more about it after I play it. This is a hard piece to play legato, and I remember Bill always stressing to practice these chord etudes very legato. If you notice the first measure, we have C to D minor, and then we have a B. Now, my first inclination would be to play both B's in that measure open, just open string. But Bill puts a third finger for that B so that you strengthen your hand and you learn to play legato. So it's like this. And it goes back to the C chord. That's a very difficult position for me, and I've had to work at that, and I expect that you will have some problems with that. So just at first, even skip the B and go C, B, D minor, hold it 2 beats, then go to the C chord. Then add the B. Okay? When you're playing these chords in chord etude, you will recognize that you've played these chords already. The last measure in the first line, we have a C major 7 to a C7. We have those chord diagrams or chord pictures on page 68. We've already played this C7 from this root 5 major 7 chord, root 5 dominant 7th chord. So when you're playing these, not only you see the notes in the chords, but you can also picture the chords and see the forms that we have in our chord pictures, as Bill alludes to on the bottom of the page. And I actually call them chord diagrams, C major 7 to C7. And next, on page 73, we'll play another duet in F. I will play the first part right now. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's called another duet in F. So before you play this, review your F major scale in second position. We're asked to play it in second position because of the Roman numerals under the first measure in the first line. Second position, F scale. Those are all the notes in the F scale in the second position. Next, in order to prepare this, it's good to review that arpeggio exercise on page 71, where we are playing arpeggios in F, a G minor arpeggio, a B flat major arpeggio, a C7 arpeggio. Then you're ready to start this duet. Notice that it is in 3/4 time, 3 beats per measure. The quarter note gets 1 beat. As I mentioned before, it's good to hear it in 3/4 time. So maybe you want to emphasize beat 1 in each measure so you can get the feel of it first. Yes, there are parts where you are not playing the first beat, but when you are, try and emphasize it and say to yourself, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Our first couple of measures are arpeggios. F major arpeggio, G minor arpeggio. Then you have the scale-wise. Now this is something new. You're playing E with your fourth finger, that's not new. G with your second, then we're jumping to B flat with our fourth finger. We haven't played that high before. So what I want you to do is stretch with your fourth finger. Again, as Bill always used to tell me, don't move your hand out of position, just stretch your fourth finger coming down. So that last measure on the first line. And then you're back into second position easily. You're really not actually going out of second position, you're just stretching. And this way, you don't have to look at your left hand. I don't have to look at my left hand because I'm in a position, I know where all the notes are. Really, the first part is the easier part with this duet. The main thing is keeping tempo, playing legato, making the melody really sounding musical. You might want to sing it to yourself while you're playing sometimes. It gives you the idea of phrasing. It gives you the idea of breathing. Too many guitarists don't think about breathing in their playing. We're not connected to the physically breathing on the instrument. You should make a note to try and breathe. And by doing that, the way to do that is to sing the melody with, or at least sing the rhythms if you can't sing the melody while you're playing. This is after you've practiced it. You'll get a better sense of phrasing and a more musical sense of phrasing. I feel like our phrasing is built off of our breathing. So I love listening to trumpet players, to woodwind players playing because they have this beautiful phrasing. And that's what I try and emulate when I play. Now it's your turn to play part one. Part two. 1, 2, 3. There's a lot in part two. First, we start off with arpeggios. F major, C7, F major. Picking for this. You could do alternate, or you could do the picking that is stated in the first measure. Down, 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 up, down. Then for C7, you will have to practice this before you can play it in all the way in tempo. So I would start with the F chord and just practice in tempo and then go into the C7. When you're switching from the F chord to the C7, notice that the bottom note C stays the same. So don't lift your third finger up. F, C7, F, C7. And next, in the next measure, we have some chromatics. E, D, D, C sharp, fourth finger, jumping to the B flat. you might have to practice that. It's not, try and keep your hand still. 1 and 2 and 3 and into the B flat. So, yeah, into the B flat. Into the chromatic. Hold that A. The B section, which is after the repeat, starts again with chords. Make sure that G is still ringing. Then we have a diminished chord. So again, as Bill used to tell me, to practice this, to get that together, we play the chord, practice the chord. So then I can do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Notice the E flat. Again, the chord. That's it. And the rest of it is just like the A section at the beginning of the page, the first 8 measures. All right, it's your turn to play this piece. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now we have, again, reading studies. Remember on page 64 and 65 we had our first reading studies. And I told you to follow along and keep the tempo and keep up with me. We played it at a fairly slow tempo. The main thing is not to make up for your mistakes. The main thing is the mistake is already the past, and you need to keep up and follow along with the time. Now we're going to play these reading studies in F. So again, practice the F major scale, the second position. And as we said on page 64 and 65, the wonderful statement of do not practice these exercises. Again, these are reading studies. In order to prepare for these reading studies, you really have to practice page 70 and 71, especially the F major scale in second position. If you're having problems with these reading studies, go back to the C major reading studies on 64 and 65 and do it slowly. I am going to play this now slightly faster than we did the C major studies. We did that at 60. We're going to do these at 65. So follow along. Again, if you make a mistake, keep going. If you make a mistake for a whole measure, count the next measure and come in the appropriate measure where you should be coming in. Always try and keep your place. So this is the first F major reading study on page 74. Oh, slower. One, 2, 3, 4. That's a big jump from the C major scale reading studies that we had. Again, as I mentioned in the previous reading studies, after a while you look at phrases. You look at the movement of the scale, the movement of the notes. You notice if there are skips. In the last measure of the first line, I'm not reading E, D, C, B flat, A. I see that it goes down scale-wise, stepwise, and from E to E. So I can look at that and follow my eyes to the next note, to F. So when I'm looking at measure 1 of the third line, I notice there's a leap from C to E, a leap of a third, and then scale-wise from G. So I'm going C, leap to F, scale, leap, scale from B flat, going back up. Oh, here we go to F. So that's how I'm starting to look at these measures as scale-wise, as leaps, as individual notes to help me to get my eyes moving in phrases and not just one note at a time. When I play one note at a time, it's like, oh yeah, oh nope, there's the next one, there's the next one. You want to look at the phrase. It's too fast to look at these eighth notes and think of each one individually. Now we have the second reading study in F, which is page 74 all the way through 75. This is a long exercise to keep your concentration. So I might take it in sections and then take a rest and take the next section. The main thing with reading for me is concentration and reaction. And the more you do the reading, the more you practice your regular studies and learn how to read your sight reading, this is like simulated sight reading, the more you're able to concentrate and have a quicker reaction. F major, second reading study. 1, 2, 3, 4. There might be some places that you have a lot of problems keeping up. Let's pick a measure, a line. Let's say the first line on page 75, where it goes. What you might do at first is to at least play the first note in each measure so that you keep going and keeping your place and keeping the time going. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's not hard. Then maybe you want to add a couple notes of 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, rest. At least get those parts. The main thing is to keep it going. And I cannot stress enough that if you're not doing your part with learning the scales and doing the exercises before this, this will be very difficult. These are always excellent reading studies to come back to. Page 76, Play It Pretty Duet. I love duets with expectations, so we're going to play this pretty. And there's a lot to this, so I'll play part 1 and then I'll explain it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Before I even start to play it pretty, which I hope I do play it pretty, I look at the form. We have a little different type of a form here where we have an A section with a repeat. And instead of having a first and second ending, all we do is we play the repeat and then go on to the last 2 measures of our A section. Our A section really is 6 measures repeated. Again, those 6 measures and going on to the last 2 measures on the second line. Our B section goes all the way down to DS al coda, that's 8 measures, going back to the sign, which is at the first measure. And the usual thing that happens when you have a DS and you have a repeat sign, you do not play the repeat sign when you go back to the DS. So we play just those 6 measures on the first line and second line once and dropping down to the coda. You might want to listen to the first part again and look at it and follow it with the music and see the form and listen to it. We're starting with a pickup note. So we're starting at 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And what I did a little differently with this melody in the first section, in the A section, I played it differently. I played the notes the same with my left hand, but a couple of times I did not pick the next note. I hammered on. I did a hammer on. So one of the times I did this. Notice I didn't pick it, the D. I went. I can use that as my expression on this piece in getting a different sound, in not picking every single note. Notice I haven't done any hammer-ons before. The main thing is to be able to pick every note and then choose when you want to do a hammer-on, or sometimes I might do a slide right into the next note. But first, you should be able to play it. Then you might want to go. Make sure you count all the ties. We're having ties over bar lines. In your third measure, you have a half note G going to the first beat of the fourth measure, tied to G. Again, we go 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3. Never count 1, 2, 3. If it's over the bar line, make sure you always remember where 1 is. Keep the meter the same. So it would be 3, 4, 1. At the end of it, remember, we haven't retarded because they're duets. And I'm playing them one at a time. But what I did was that I retarded within that structure of the 2 beats a phrase, so I still came in on 1 of the last chord in the last measure. So I made sure I stretched out the time, but I made sure I came in on 1 of the last measure. Listen to that and see how I did that. Your turn to practice this. Here's part 2 of Play It Pretty. One, 2, 3, 4. Again, before you start, make sure you remember the form of the piece, the repetition of the 6 measures. When you go back from the DS, you do not repeat those 6 measures. Now let's look at part 2 with all these chords. They're really diatonic chords that are within the key of C. C, D minor, E minor, D minor, C. Make sure you play the right finger in your moving positions. You could play it this way, or you could play it this way. Moving, staying in second position and playing your first finger on the E minor. Your right hand should be rest stroke, not strumming, but so we're hearing that top note strong. In your third measure, you have a physically hard part to play with the B flat on the third beat, and then flattening your first finger to get the C and the A flat. So you might want to practice C major, C, B flat, and then make sure in that last measure of where you're supposed to repeat, make sure that chord rings out for 2 beats. In the first measure of the third line, you have again this type of thing, arpeggios. Make sure you can first play them, and then you can, and the count is 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2 and. The first 2 measures of the fourth line, that second measure, after you get that C chord, think of that jump where you have to go with your fourth finger A, third finger C sharp, first finger E, and then 2 open strings. You might need to practice that switch before, and then we go to make sure the chords ring out. Make sure you use rest strokes at the end of those chords where you could emphasize the top note. Keep the tempo, keep the notes ringing that are supposed to be ringing throughout. It's not, it's, you're going to roll your finger in the second measure of the third line. So we're going to use our second finger G, C third, 1, 1, open, 2, 3, 1, 1, open, 2, 3, 1, 1, open. Or you could just put your whole first finger right down at the beginning. The main thing is that you have to lift it up when you play the G. So now it's your time to practice part 2. In addition, with my explanation of part 1, I would like to add the last line where the coda sign is. We were playing you notice on the E of the next to the last measure, the second time we play E, we play first E with our fourth finger, and then we play open E, B flat with our fourth finger. We're actually moving into third position there, because B flat and A flat are played with the second and fourth finger sliding into back to second position. Look at it. Right? Open. I definitely don't want you to raise your hand that high. I was emphasizing it. So instead of moving into the third position in that measure, we could actually move into third position in the measure before, where it has the asterisk. The beginning of the coda has C. Then we can put our first finger on D. See? So from the coda sign, we'd be doing C with our fourth finger, then first finger D, E, G, F, E with our third finger first. One, two, three, four. Chord forms, page 77. We already know our basic form 3 chord. We covered this on page 67 and 68. Now we're not going to do as much a theoretical basis of some chords. We're going to do a physical relationship basis. Here we have done the physical and theoretical by doing C, C major 7, C7. But here what we're going to do is just look at this C major chord. What connects these two chords, we're not going to talk theory as much, but what connects these chords is the 3 notes that you're flattening with your third finger. C, A minor 7. C, keep the 3 fingers down. This A minor 7, C, A minor 7. And the next chord that we learn on the page is the dominant 9th chord. Here we have the 3. Now we're going to do D9 chord. Notice now you can have the first string ring. If not, it's at least. Or you could put actually the 5th in the bass as it has on the chord diagram or chord picture. So let's look at this again. The C chord, that's root 5. A minor 7, root 6. D9, root 5. Now the next chord we have is this 6-9 chord. There's a controversy of whether to call this 9-6 or 6-9. I don't care what you call it right now. It looks, I'll call it 9-6 since the 9 is on top. 9-6 chord. And actually the 9 is on top of the 6 in this voicing. Again, it's a physical relationship. Your D9 chord D6/9 chord. That's a nice sounding chord. Have you played this chord before? Yes. As Bill always plans things out so well. On the previous page on Play It Pretty, our last chord was this C6/9. Root 5, we had 3, 3, 1, 1, 2. If you notice in our position markings in this exercise, we have some position markings that have a parentheses around it. That means that the first finger is not used in the fingering. But it is, I'll read it for you. A position mark in parentheses means that the first finger is omitted from the form. The position number is determined by the lowest fret used. The lowest fret used in A minor 7 is A, 5th fret. Okay? C is 3rd fret here. A minor is 5th fret. Now, we know an A minor 7 like this. To distinguish this is 5th fret of Roman numeral 5 without the parentheses. This is Roman numeral 5 with the parentheses. And to tell you the truth, I mostly play this A minor 7 in this type of voicing. I don't use this as much. Maybe when I'm going to this type of D7, but that to me is a tighter type sound for a minor 7 chord. But we need to make choices, so we need to know as many forms as possible. Here is the exercise with the chord forms. I won't do it with the metronome, but I will keep a steady tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4. You notice you don't hear the top note on the first string as much. That's because we're, again, using the wrist for rhythm. We're just flicking the wrist. I'm just playing random chords right now so you can see it. Practice it at a slow tempo. Practice it playing on the first beat of each measure, or at any time playing on the chord. Every time a chord changes, play it on that beat, like A minor 7, D7, 1, 2, or D9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then add the strums. Practice it with the emphasis do dot, do dot, do dot, do dot, do dot. So you have that. Triplet study. In our triplet study, before I said you could use either alternate picking can't hear the triplet, can you hear it as much as if you do down, up, down, down, up, down. So that's what I want you to start with. Down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up. So on every beat there's a downstroke. And then you can switch around with the alternate picking. But the main thing is first hear that. One and a two and a one and a two and a three and a four and a. Here's the triplet study. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you notice, we start the first 4 measures in the key of C, and then we have a flat sign in the second measure of the first line. We're going to the key of F there. That's a modulation. And then on the last measure of the third line, we have a natural sign right at the end of that measure. That is telling us we're modulating back to the key of C. So practice your C scale, practice your F scale, practice your C scale in triplets. F scale in triplets. On page 78 and 79, where I have our first speed studies. On 78, it involves fingering type 1, which is C scale in the second position. And page 79, we have fingering type 1A, which is the F scale in the second position. So warming up, play the C scale before you play 78 and the F scale before you play 79. What we're going to do here is that we're going to play these exercises with the repeats, but after each repeat, we're going to breathe and take 1 measure rest and then go into the next exercise. Breathe, take another, after that exercise, that repeat, we do each. It's always good to have control of speed, but it's also control of tempo and silence, and then going into the next exercise, concentrating on that next exercise. Of course, speed study also means don't play it fast till you can play it slow. So first we're going to play it at a medium tempo, and then you can build up speed as you get your technique cleaner and cleaner. But I know that when I have problems playing something fast, I go back to it and play it slowly, and I find that I can't play it at a slow tempo. And that's why I can't play it fast. So it's good to make sure that you concentrate and play things slow, medium, and fast tempos. Maintain an even tempo. Play no faster than perfect coordination in both hands will allow. An increase in speed will come gradually. That is an important statement that Bill makes there. Speed comes gradually, and it comes with control. So we're going to try this at 90 for the quarter note. Remember, we're going to take a measure rest in between. Here's exercise 1, page 78. 1, 2, 3, 4. Two, three, four. 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 If your hand is starting to get tired, rest it, okay? We don't want any hand injuries with this. If you can only play the first 2 lines with repeats, that's fine. If you can only play the first line with repeat, then rest, do that. Speed will come gradually, as Bill writes in the book, and it's very important that you don't push yourself to the brink of hurting yourself. Here's exercise 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. If you notice on both those exercises, when I take the 1 measure rest, I am landing on the note C on 1, so we finish the phrase with do. In other words, so do, 2, 3, that would be C. C. Always end on 1 of the next measure with the note C in the key of C. Here and now on page 79, we will be ending on F on 1 of the measure of the rest. On the top of the page, it says on page 79, practice all these speed studies as written and with a dotted 8th, 16th rhythm. Also play with and out without repeats. What I will do now is that I'll play the first exercise on page 79 with a dotted 8th, 16th. Okay? So you get that feel of it. But before you even do that, you should be doing everything with even 8th notes. This is just to show you how it would go if you wanted to practice it with dotted 8th, 16th. With the measure rest in between each of the repeats. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. Two, three, four. Why practice it with the dotted 8/16? You're actually practicing going faster between two notes. And that, so if you can do it, you're getting more control. You're practicing control. But for exercise 2, we're going to do it with straight eighth notes. At the top of the page, it says also play them with and without repeats. We're going to play this exercise without the repeats. 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, it's not just how fast you pick. It also has a lot to do with the left hand. So it's the coordination between the right and the left hand. If it's not coming out cleanly, the notes are not coming out cleanly, maybe it's because the left hand is not working as quickly as it should be. After the exercises on page 78, I mentioned to watch out for your left hand and not to have practice it too much so you don't hurt your left hand. Let me just say something about the right hand. Make sure when you're playing these with alternate picking that you're using your wrist. According to the person that's playing, the amount of forearm that you use may differ. But the main thing is to make sure that the wrist is being used in this other than just the forearm. I try to play with the same technique whether I'm playing chords or single notes. If I'm playing with a wrist motion with playing chords, I'm playing with a wrist motion playing single notes. The same technique. And that way I get more control of the same technique. So I'm playing all, look at I'm not going like this. I'm moving my forearm a little so I can navigate across the strings. But when I'm doing tremolo or 16th notes, it's mostly wrist. It's not, if I do with my forearm, I'm starting to feel tension up on my shoulder and I'm tightening up. So I try and keep a loose wrist. And I try as much as possible to keep a relaxed grip on with my right hand on the pick. I'm not choking the pick. I'm letting it move around I'm not like squeezing the pick. I'm lightly holding it. I've read, and Bill used to say, hold it just enough so you don't drop it. Well, sometimes I drop it. So I'm just trying to hold it just enough so I'm relaxed and I don't tense up. After finishing the speed studies, we are done with this lesson. Let's go back to where we started with this lesson. Page 70 and 71, we learned the new major scale fingering type 1A, F major in second position. Practice the arpeggio studies, the eighth note studies. And then we learned some more chord forms. Practice that chord etude on page 72. A duet in key of F on 73. your reading studies. On 74, 75, we have another duet to play on 76. More chord forms on 77, triplet study, and then your speed studies. There's a lot to this lesson. So in addition to this lesson, if you're having some problems, go back to lesson 1. Make sure that you know fingering type 1. After these speed studies in 1 and 1A and your reading studies, these scales should be almost second nature to you, because they're so related to each other that you can play a C scale, the whole position, then go right to the F scale. Then go back to the C scale. There's that B natural. So that we're modulating between both keys and making some choices and knowing where that B flat and the B natural, and knowing the difference between the scales and knowing the notes. I'll keep going B flat here and then F. These scales should be second nature to you. Have a good time practicing this lesson.